What in the hell is wrong with this Rams offense? I'm going to dive in and try to figure out what it is. Before we get into it, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment, and let's dive in. So I did a lot of research today, a ton of research, actually, a nauseating amount of research going back. And here's the thing. I want to preface this, okay? I wouldn't be as critical of Sean McVay if I didn't, one, love him. I think Sean McVay is fantastic, okay? He's got some faults to him, but he's fantastic, and he already has shown you the ability to get over humps. So that's what is so frustrating, is that he has it. We know he has it, so it's about finding it out. And number two, I'm going to bring up his past here, and that's the thing. I'm not going to compare him to any other coaches. I'm just going to simply use some stats and references to his previous offenses. What's going on with this offense? How do you have Puka Nacua, who was having one of the greatest rookie seasons in the history of the league, which no one saw coming? I don't care what anyone says. Tutu Atwell, the way he's played, Cooper Kupp, Tyler Higbee, Kyron Williams. Obviously, I know he's out for a little bit, but still. And you have a decent offensive line, Matthew Stafford, Hall of Fame quarterback. How is this team only scoring 22.1 a game? I mean, I go through it. It doesn't really make a lot of sense for me. Going into week 7, Matthew Stafford led the league in intended air yardage with 2,199 and also completed air yardage with 1,160. That's according to Pro Football Reference. In addition to that, right now, the Rams are bottom half of the league in play action. They're 15th in carries. They're 13th in rushing. They're 12th in rushing first downs. They're top 10. They have a top 10 run game in terms of yards per carry. 9th in rushing yards. They're 4th in passing yards. 14th in receptions. 30th in completion percentage. 4th in receiving yards per reception. So what's the deal here? First in completed air yards. I have to say this because we're going to get really detailed here. So I hope you guys like an analytical video. I feel like the Rams, simply put, I'm going to give you the real simple answer to what is happening. The Rams are basically focusing on the deep play, the long developing play. The simple answer is that they're not throwing enough short routes. They're not giving Stafford some outlets, and maybe it's on Stafford for not looking for them. They're not using the running backs out of the backfield anywhere near enough. And I'm recording this right after I watched the Vikings figure out the perfect game plan to not only slow down and mitigate a 49ers pass rush, but slow down and mitigate a 49ers pass rush by using the quick game in the passing game. Not even necessarily running the ball, which they did. So let's dive into it furthermore. 40% in the red zone completion. Matthew Stafford. What's going on? Well, he was never great in the red zone as far as completion percentage. In 2021, he was around the 50% mark, which, again, it's the red zone, red area. It gets more intense. It gets tighter. It's harder. I get that. 40%, though? I don't know what's going on, man. I don't get it. Stafford has 120.3 passer rating when targeting 20-plus yards down the field. This doesn't surprise me. Stafford has been money down the field. He's missed some throws, don't get me wrong, but he's been money. So then he has a 73.5 rating in the intermediate and an 84.4 in the short game. And I'm just going to say this right now. It's not just Stafford. I'm not just going to pile on Stafford. We're going through the whole offense here. And I got to tell you, I think Stafford's hurt. I think that's really what is going on as far as Stafford's accuracy. He's now below 60% completion percentage. He's also attempting way more difficult throws. But I also have some more issues with the offense. And one of the issues is that play action Stafford has as many big time throws as he does with no play action Stafford. I understand Matthew Stafford doesn't like having his back towards the defense. I understand he doesn't love play action. He likes the shotgun. I get that. However, is that really what's best for the offense? Because the stats don't indicate that at all. I just said he has as many big-time throws from the play-action passing attack, which he very rarely is using play action as opposed to non-play action, and he has as many big-time throws. So that's something that's interesting there. Stafford has a perfect passer rating when throwing deep to the right side of the field, And for the most part, it's great all over the place, except for the intermediate and short middle of the field and the behind the line of scrimmage part of the middle of the field and the intermediate left part of the field. It's really intriguing. It's interesting. I don't know why that is the case. I will say he is having unfortunate drops all over the place. Guys are dropping passes left and right. The Rams, I believe, lead the league in drops. So that's a big reason. But Stafford wasn't good enough to win the game that we just saw against the Steelers. And it makes you wonder, like, what is going on? I do think he's injured. I think it's his hip. I think it's changed the way. I mean, now you really can't do play action because he doesn't want to be under center. You could tell that. But I think now it's honestly to keep him healthy. I think that's why they're using the pistol. So I'm just saying, I think that's a big reason here. I think since the Colts game, Diana Rossini came out earlier this week before the Steeler game. She came out earlier and said this is something they've been monitoring. He has some pain. Like, that's the thing here, okay? That hip injury isn't going to just go away, and it never was. Stafford plays through pain. But there seems to be a hitch in his step when he throws it. Anyway, let's not focus so much on Stafford now. I kind of picked apart Stafford's game a little bit. I still think in a grand scheme of things, he's had a very good year. The stats don't indicate that. But recently, I think the injury is starting to affect him, and I think we saw it more and more as this game went on. So what is next? Well, let's look at the targets. So to this point, because the question is, what is the Rams' offensive identity? That's the question. How are you averaging 22.1 points per game? Do they have an offensive identity? Well, 78 targets Puka Nacua has in 7 games, 107.4 passer rating Matthew Stafford has when targeting him. As for Tutu Atwell, he has 42 targets in 7 games. Stafford has a 101.3 passer rating when targeting Tutu Atwell. When targeting Tyler Higbee, who has a 32 number as far as targets in 7 games, he has an 88.2 passer rating. Higbee has, of course, a dropped touchdown and a few drops in the intermediate game, including one against the Colts and one this past week against the Steelers. Kupp has 28 targets in 3 games and is a 93.6 targeted passer rating. Kyren Williams, 23 targets in 6 games. Van Jefferson, who's no longer on the roster, 15 targets in 5 games. Ben Skoranek, 5 targets in 7 games. Bryson Hopkins, 4 targets in 7 games. Ronnie Rivers, 4 targets in 4 games. And Darrell Henderson, 2 targets in 1 game. How about the targets since Cooper Kupp has been back, though? Well, Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua both have 28 targets. Tyler Higbee is third with 9. Tutu Atwell has 8 targets. Kyren and Henderson have 2 targets each. Ben Skoranek, Ronnie Rivers, and Bryson Hopkins all share at the bottom with 1 target. What can we take away from this? Well, I think they've had a hard time integrating their offense with Cooper Kupp. What I mean by that is since Cooper Kupp has returned, it's been the Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua show, and they're not using Tutu Atwell for much more than just as a, really simply put, an occasional explosive play and a decoy. That's what he is. You see the jet motions, you see the rail motions. They're doing what Miami's doing with Tyreek Hill, except they're not throwing to Tutu Atwell. I don't know if that's Stafford. I don't know if that's McVay, but I do have an issue with it. To have the start of the season that Tutu Atwell had, I think was putting that on film and only opening up the possibilities for this offense. So how on earth did an offense that was playing as well as it did in the first 4 games with Tutu Atwell and Puka Nacua, 2 guys that had very limited experience starting in the NFL and one that didn't have any experience, how did they become worse when Cooper Kupp came back? Because that is exactly what happened. Well, I'm going to try to get to the bottom of it, so here we go. So as I was evaluating Puka Nacua's tape and, of course, the stats, I came away with the fact the screen game doesn't work. Okay, I don't care what anyone says. The screen game does not work for Puka Nacua. He has caught all 7. He's only gone for 13 yards. That's a 2.2 yards per reception rate. That's not good. That's not working. Stop it. Take it out of the playbook entirely. He doesn't have the short area quickness and the explosion and the acceleration that you need to have when you're catching that quick screen. So, line of scrimmage, when being thrown there, when being targeted, Stafford has a 79.2 passer rating. How about in the short game? Puka Nacua has a 92.4 passer rating when targeted. 33 out of 40 he has come down with for 2 catches on 5 contested targets. So not the best contested catch rate, but he has done well in the short game. However, in the medium game, he has a 108.7 rating when targeted. 14 of 24 he's caught, 1 catch on 4 contested. That's where 5 of his drops have been in the intermediate, over the middle, I might add. And in the deep game, Puka Nacua has been unreal. We're talking about 20 plus yards at that point. He has a 145.8 rating, 5 of 8, and he has 2 catches on 2 contested. Of course, the catch in the Seattle game and the catch last week against Pittsburgh Steelers, that was unfreaking believable. I don't know how he caught it. I don't know how he kept his foot in bounds, but he did. And his feet, excuse me. This is in college. So Puka Nacua, the screen games don't. The screen game does not work with Puka Nacua, so that needs to stop. But he's great in the deep and intermediate game, although over the middle, he has 5 drops, and everywhere else on the field, he doesn't. So right now, I don't know why they're throwing over the middle so much. I mean, clearly it's bothering Nacua. However, that I'm not going to get too much into that. Well, let's just continue. Tutu Atwell, okay? Came away with it, needs more screens. Simple as that. Tutu Atwell needs more screen opportunities. See, a big thing that is missing in this offense is the bubble screen game. I hate it. I absolutely hate the bubble screens because I don't believe they have anyone besides Tutu Atwell, and they're not using him really in that game to actually make those plays work. However, they've been a staple in Sean McVay's offense, and before you roll your eyes, they've been a staple in a good way. That's right. Robert Woods was a model of consistency in that area of his game. He took 78 of 85 screens for 579 yards, 3 touchdowns, and averaged 7.42 yards per reception throughout his Rams tenure. So you could argue that the Rams really haven't been the same since they lost Robert Woods, or rather they traded him away. Does this team need him? I wouldn't say they need him. They need a guy to be able to fill in with what he brought to the table. And obviously, we're going to be talking a little bit more about what he brought to the table as the show goes on. But we're talking right now just in terms of the screen game, okay? Because they need to get more creative. This offense is not creative enough. It's just simply not. And teams are chomping at the bit. They know what the Rams are going to do. If you put Puka Nacua out there and you already have the defense is stretched out, well, I hate to break it to you, you better have a good screen, because they're ready for it. And Puka Nacua doesn't have that acceleration to go from 0 to 60 like a rock and roller coaster to get to the next level. It doesn't work. So what we're seeing is that Tutu Atwell, who's only had 2 shots in the screen game, it's gone for 13 yards. He's got 2 for 13, and Puka has 7 for 13. Puka Nacua is great. It's not to take anything away from him. Just use him at things that he's good at. He's not great in the screen game, and that's okay. He was good in college, don't get me wrong. He's not going to be great in the NFL because college is a different animal, and that speed, it takes a while for him to build it up. He's got built-up speed. He's not a guy that goes from 0 to 60, and that's okay. So Tutu Atwell needs more screen work there. He's also excellent deep down the field. He's good in the intermediate game. He only has 1 drop. And simply put, this guy needs more targets. You have this guy running around doing cardio, for Christ's sakes. Now, great block, by the way, on the Puka Nacua run after the catch that we saw against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Have to throw that out there. But this guy, you talked about it. You got him involved. Started off the season. Everything we heard in camp, how he really figured out how to play all 3 receiver positions on the offense, and they were excited about him. Well, why aren't you throwing him the ball now? I understand Kupp's back. There's no excuse to only have 1 catch in back-to-back games for over 30 yards, at least 30 yards, and a touchdown. He's leading the team in receiving touchdowns. That's mind-blowing. He's leading the team in receiving touchdowns. The guy barely gets the ball. But back-to-back games, he's had an explosive of 30-plus yards on a catch, and then that's it. He has 3 targets the last 2 games. So what's going on with this? Well, first off, they're using him as a decoy. That's all they're doing. So I'm hoping, because Tutu Atwell had a huge reception. I believe it was actually his first reception of his career against the Dallas Cowboys last year. Matthew Stafford threw it up, and he blew right by Trayvon Diggs. I'm hoping against Dallas this week, they finally use him. They need to use him as a deep threat because we know what he can do in the short and intermediate game, but they're not throwing it to him. Now they're just using him as a decoy. The jet motion, by the way, as great as that is, and we'll get into that, but as great as the jet motion is, if you don't actually give him jet sweeps, if you don't run the ball with him, defenses are just looking at that like it's a novelty piece, and he's basically Tavon Austin. And that's what's happening. Tutu Atwell's getting open. They're just not throwing him the football. I'm watching the tape. He's open. I don't know if it's Stafford. I don't know if it's McVay. There's a heavy emphasis on Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, and Tutu Atwell is left out in the cold when this guy was on pace to have a banged up type of season before Cooper Kupp came back. So, deep down the field, Matthew Stafford has a 129.2 passer rating when targeting Tutu Atwell. That's 5 out of 10 catches for an average of 32.6 yards per reception. Think we should probably do that a little bit more? I would think so. Medium. Tutu Atwell, when targeted in the medium portion of the air, the field, Stafford has a 44.5% passer rating. 8 of 16, 2 catches on 3 contested. Is that Tutu Atwell's fault? No. Stafford, for whatever reason, they've been doing a lot of over-the-middle stuff with Tutu in the middle of the field. And for whatever reason, in that 10 to 19-yard range, Stafford has thrown interceptions. He's missed his target. It's been bad. So I don't know what's going on there, but Tutu Atwell has done his job. 2 out of 3 contested catches, not bad for a 5'9" guy that's $165 soaking wet. Then in the short game, 124.4 passer rating when targeting Tutu Atwell. He's caught 11 of 14, and he has 1 contested catch out of 3 opportunities. And then in the line of scrimmage, which is, of course, we're talking about the screen game, he's caught 2 of 2 for 13 yards. So what is happening here? Why are they not using him? Well, it's exactly like I said. They're so focused on Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp that they don't use him enough. They just don't even, he just kind of sits out there. Hell, the only catch he made, he had 2 targets. The only catch he made, he took out of the air in an attempt that honestly looked like he might have been throwing to Cooper Kupp. So think about that. All right, let's move on to Tyler Higbee. So this guy needs more medium in the field targets. We're talking intermediate game, 10 to 19 yards. This is what I've come away with. His drops have been a problem. We need to just call it like it is. He had a really crucial drop that unfortunately led to a 51-yard missed field goal. So that doesn't help. He needs to be used in the screen game more. Last year, that was a thing. The block and release, I brought it up on the All-22. He needs to be used in the screen game more, and he has 1 catch for 8 yards in the screen game. Why is that not being used? I don't know. Well, in the deep area of the field, 20 plus, he's not even being targeted. Medium part of the field, 107.7 passer rating Stafford has, 6 out of 10 caught for 20.7 yards per reception. And then the short part of the field, Tyler Higbee has a 79.3 targeted passer rating from Stafford, 14 out of 21 caught, 3 out of 5 contested catch, 7.8 yards per reception. So what's the deal with Tyler Higbee? Well, I don't like the routes. I don't like how they utilize the tight ends. We saw with TJ Hawkinson how he was used against the 49ers. I want to see more of that. I want to see the way the 49ers use George Kittle. When you blitz, I want to see you be able to beat the blitz with the tight end. We know Stafford's capable of it, but problem is what you see a lot of the time is when the pass rush gets there and the pocket breaks down, Stafford has to run for life because there's nobody anywhere around him. There's no checkdowns. Everyone is 20 yards down the field. That's been a big issue. This team has gone for the gold way too much, and it's become a problem. So that's why we're talking about a team that only has 22.1 points per game despite all this talent. And now we bring to Cooper Kupp, who has some drops. I think he needs more intermediate throws, and he needs to be utilized a little bit more in the screen game. Is he the best in the screen game? No, he is not. But he has 0 targets in the screen game, and he'd be a lot better than Puka Nacua. Fun fact, Cooper Kupp has actually never had, at any point in his career, any year, he's never had in the screen game at least 7 yards per reception, and Robert Woods has 7.42 for his Rams tenure as an average. So Kupp's good. He's like a running back when he gets the ball in his hands, but that 0 to 60 ability that Woods has is definitely missed, and it's why I keep saying Tutu Atwell. So let's look at Kupp, okay? When targeted deep down the field, 4 out of 7 he's caught, 1 out of 1 contested catch opportunities he's caught for 33.3 yards per reception. That's 101.8 passer rating for Matthew Stafford when targeted. The medium of the field, the intermediate part of the field, 1 out of 2 catches he's caught, a touchdown, 110.4 passer rating when targeted. The short part of the field, Stafford has a 65.5 rating. Kupp has caught 12 out of 19, 1 out of 2 contested, and he has a 12.4 yards per reception. So I think right now it's really predictable. I think teams know it. Kupp's either going deep down the field, 20 plus yards, or he's settling in that 0 to 9 yard range. There's no targets in the bubble screen game, and there's no targets for the most part. There's only been 2 in the intermediate part of the field. So they got to, I understand it's only been 3 games. You got to open that up a little bit, and obviously small sample size, but still it's a problem. So I go back to the screen game, and I talked about Woods, but Brandon Cooks was also really good in the screen game. He had 24 catches out of 25 balls thrown to him, 175 yards, no touchdowns, but a 7.29 yards per reception average. And when you talk about in the screen game, that's really good. That's almost getting a first down. That's setting up 2nd and 3 essentially on a first down. So Cooks was great. Obviously 0 to 60. Woods was great. But Todd Gurley is the best screen game guy that the Rams have had in Sean McVay's tenure, and it's not remotely close. 76 out of 91 he caught for 797 yards, 5 touchdowns, and that's a 10.4 yards per reception rate. Here's the thing. To just give any sort of idea of how good that is, Darrell Henderson has 33 out of 40 he's caught for 201. That's a 6 yards per reception rate. So that's on the same level as Cooper Kupp. But Todd Gurley was another level. Now, here's the thing, though. The Rams haven't called slip screens the way they did with Todd Gurley and Jared Goff. And I understand a lot of that was, first off, he was the focal point, he was the engine, he was the catalyst, and it was to make Goff feel comfortable at home, essentially. But at the same time, you don't just call that to make your quarterback feel comfortable. You can call that and you can beat a blitz. You can counterpunch. And this is a counterpunch. When it's done right, it is a beauty. And you have guys that have been able to get on the run, been able to get to the second level and combo block, like a Steve Avila, like a Kevin Dotson, and to me, in this sense, it's insane that there isn't more usage in the receiving game. At the same time, Stafford's had a hard time getting these guys the ball. I don't know what it is with Stafford, but he's really struggled to throw that screen. He once again airmailed another screen when it was to Henderson. He's done it to Kyron Williams. I don't know what it is, but he throws with the same zip he's trying to throw over the middle of the field 20 yards. I don't get it. But I will say there's not enough designed ability here. There's not enough designed opportunities for these running backs. And I can tell you right now, this is probably the best you're going to get when it comes to the Rams. Kyron's out, but when he comes back, you got Kyron who can catch out of the backfield. You got Darrell Henderson. You got Royce Freeman. And, of course, you have Myles Gaskin, who's probably the best receiving back of all of them. There's so much receiving opportunity here, and I was hoping we were going to see that against the Steelers, but instead we only got 1 for 5 yards, and he almost scored a touchdown. Darrell Henderson did, set up his touchdown run. So, what are my thoughts here? How do you fix this? Well, I think first off, to fix this offense, to give them some sort of identity, you can't be the team that's, hey, this is the Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua show. One of them will go off. One of them will have a good game. Tutu Atwell will get 1 catch. Okay, you can't have that anymore. You got to be able to spread out the targets. You got to keep defenses honest. And I think at the end of the day, what we've seen is that defenses aren't kept honest with this offense right now. Teams are going to chomp at the bit. They're going to see Puka Nacua. They're going to see Cooper Kupp. They're going to be fine giving Puka Nacua 148 yards because they saw what the Steelers just did. Didn't matter. 158, whatever. It didn't matter. And that's the thing. That's the issue. So if you're not going to use, Higbee, if you're not going to use Atwell, if you're not going to use Bryson Hopkins, if you're not going to use Skoranek, then eventually teams are just like, all right, it's the Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua show. It's not like he's going to throw to Atwell. We saw the forced throw to Cooper Kupp that led to a touchdown. Obviously not a pick 6, but the interception changed the game to TJ Watt. That was a forced throw. He had Henderson in the flat, wide open. Stafford's not looking to that guy. He's not looking to his checkdowns. So a lot of these long developing plays, and you don't have a 2008 offensive line. You don't have a 2021 offensive line. So why do you have these long developing plays? This team is still giving up sacks. They've given up 8 in the first half and 10 in the second half. Still 18 is a lot of sacks. And Stafford's been holding on to the ball longer because there's no check down option. Why is it on third down you come out and empty and you still don't have a check down option? You don't even have a guy in the flat. You don't have anything. Guys are 20 yards down the field. Well, what happens when now you have a coverage? You have guys that are completely covered and blanketed, and you have a good pass rush. That's a sack. It's going to be a coverage sack on third down. Now you're punting or kicking a field goal, and that has been the issue. It's been the issue. And we saw it. Settling for a 51-yard field goal with Brett Maher has also been an issue. Settling for long field goals when your field goal kicker is almost automatic inside of 50. So when you're talking about the 40 to 49, 30 to 39, Maher's good. It's beyond 50 where those can get a little dicey, and the problem is the Rams have been way too conservative. They do not want to beat the crap out of you. And let's just be honest here. If you watch the JE Live, it was brought up by a viewer of the show, Jordan Phillips. I thought he did a great job explaining it, and I've been saying the same thing. I saw it on tape. The Rams were not far off from getting the game tied up against them in the Cardinal game. And that's the frustrating point, is that when you look at that, Christian Roseboom's interception saved that from being a tie ball game. There's too much underachieving, and there's not enough stepping on the throat and just ending your opponent. There's no jugular shots. I mean, they're both conservative and too aggressive at the same time. And when things are working, they go away from it. The Steelers still couldn't stop the run consistently, and the Rams stopped it for them. On the final drive, Royce Freeman, 2 runs for 13 yards. You're at the 43-yard line. Pass, punt. You don't get the ball again. You lose. Doesn't matter what happened. We can talk about all that all we want. We're talking about the offense right now. The offense has held this team back. And we can talk about the explosives all we want, and they have plenty of them. That's the only reason that they're not what they were last year. This offense, with a healthy Matthew Stafford, although he's banged up, I do believe. But anyway, with Stafford, with Kupp, with Puka, with Tutu, with all these guys, compared to last year, where they're starting John Wolford and they're starting Bryce Perkins and they're starting like this, how is this team any different? They're scoring maybe 4 points a game more with all that talent. That's how you know something is up. That's how you know they're not reaching their full potential, and it's just not acceptable. And now we bring in the run game. And what I mean by that, I like the way the run game's going. I like that they committed to run the ball 30 times, right? But let's be honest here, going back to the whole point of this video, what is the Rams' offensive identity? They don't have one. It's, I hope Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp go off. Tutu Atwell might get, it might be a decoy throughout the game. He might get a catch. He might not. Probably a little explosive here and there. Higbee might catch something in the flat. Bryson might catch something in the flat. The offensive line will be solid for the most part. We'll struggle towards the end of the game. And we're going to run the ball, and it's going to be, we're going to run it 30 times or we're going to run it 13 times. It's like, basically, it's the Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua show, throwing deep down the field, leading the league in air yards down the field, air yards completed, air yards intended, and on third down, checking out of like a simple run just to throw a deep ball because you liked a look, and you don't execute it, and that's the problem. So defense ends up being on the field the whole time, and that's what you get, or they get discouraged. You get a huge stop, you have to come back, you have to hit them where it hurts. You don't do that. So another big issue with the offense is that when I said they lack creativity, they do. There's hardly any jet motion. I mean, there's a lot of jet motion. There's hardly any jet sweeps. There's hardly any end arounds. There's hardly any reverses. And I look back to this, and Tutu Atwell, he's had end arounds he has one end around for 11 yards and a touchdown in his career. We saw that against Seattle last year, end of the season. He has an end around to the right side. That was to the left. He has an end around to the right side twice for 27 yards, which both have happened this year. They have not gone back to the end around since that game against the Bengals. And you know which one I'm talking about, the one they overturned the touchdown. They have not gone back to the end around. So what gives? And now, why is it that Puka Nacua is the one that you're going to have? Why aren't you using Tutu Atwell to be the explosive guy he can be? The problem is, it goes back to it again. I talked about it in the screen game. I talked about it before. I'm going to say it again. Robert Woods was excellent in the run game. So jet sweeps to the right, he had 22 carries for 175 yards and a touchdown. Jet sweeps to the left, he had 18 carries for 128 yards and a touchdown. And end arounds to the left, he had 12 carries for 75 yards and 3 touchdowns while with the Rams. And then he had a reverse to the left 3 times for 25 yards. Robert Woods was a huge catalyst to the offense. He did things that we can keep saying Puka Nacua is this Robert Woods guy. He's not Robert Woods. He does things better than Robert Woods, but this is one of those things he doesn't do. Most players don't. What Robert Woods did in LA was really underappreciated, wasn't talked about enough. So I look at this, all these jet sweeps, and I see 2017, they had 15 jet sweeps, 7 end arounds, 1 reverse. For those of you who don't know at home what I'm talking about, a reverse is when you go the opposite side of the field on a run to a receiver or maybe a tight end. End arounds are when you hand off to the receiver comes over and gets the ball, but this is after the ball is snapped. There's no pre-snap movement. And jet sweeps are when there's pre-snap movement that go into a carry for the wide receiver. So in 2017, 15 jet sweeps, 7 end arounds, 1 reverse. In 2018, 32 jet sweeps, 1 end around, 1 reverse. 2019, 14 jet sweeps, 8 end arounds, 2 reverses. 2020, we had 24 jet sweeps, 5 end arounds, 0 reverses. 2021, 8 jet sweeps, 2 end arounds, 0 reverses. 2022, we had 22 jet sweeps, 2 end arounds, 1 reverse. And this year, the Rams have 2 jet sweeps and 3 end arounds, despite the fact they run jet motion most of the time. They're constantly getting Tutu Atwell in motion. I understand what that does is it gives him those free releases, but they're not throwing to him in those free releases, and it's generating the attention, but they're using him basically as a decoy. It's a waste. They're not running the ball enough. They're not keeping them on their toes. They're running up the middle. They're using duo. They're running these gap runs. They're not being creative in the run game, really. I'd like to see them be more creative in the run game. I like to see them be more creative in the passing game. I think right now they're just, to me, when you have a 3rd and 1, you don't need to be going deep down the field. They love doing that. So right now, the Rams are just really frustrating to watch on the offensive side, and really because they're capable of so much more. This is a team that I thought would have a top 5 offense, and they still could. They can still turn this thing around. But right now, 22.1 points per game is just not acceptable. And it's just not. This team is not generating enough points. And by the way, last year, week 2 against the Falcons was the most out of the last 2 years that these offenses have scored. So, to this point, of course, obviously we had the Broncos game. But like my point is, and why I made this video and why it's longer, is because I want it to be as informative as possible and put out every single bit of information I could to really just show you my thought process. I did so much research on this going back to 2017, looking through the tendencies. Sean McVay has changed his approach since Stafford has come over. And it worked in 2021 because you had, and I'll actually say this, the offense still was different when Robert Woods went down. But the offense was different with Robert Woods too, but it was really good. And I think the problem here is that it worked well when you had one of the best offensive lines in football. You had a defense that could get you turnovers. And furthermore, you had an offense that was just fireworks with Stafford, with Deshaun Jackson, with OBJ, with Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods and Van Jefferson. You should have that now, but you don't. This team will go into dry spells like crazy. They can't play 2 halves right now. It's just not happening. They either get off to a great start and then struggle in the second half, or they struggle in the first half and get off to, they finish it off great in the second half. There's like no in between with this team. And I think, yes, the play calling is an issue. I also think Stafford is checking out of it. But I also think the thing that's really holding him back is that Stafford's hip injury, one, is affecting his throws. And I think two, it's affecting how much they can use play action. And if it's not, at this point, Sean McVay needs to put his foot down and realize they are successful in play action. They need to use it more. Stafford has as many big-time throws in play action as he does without play action. And when you're in the shotgun, which we're seeing a lot of shotgun, empty sets, I get it. But at the same time, on third down, now you're telling the defense, hey, I'm not going to be running the football. And I'm not Lamar Jackson last time I checked. So here you go. Just stop the throw. There's more to it than that. But this is as far as I can get without getting copyright claimed and throwing up every single play I want to throw up. Because right now, I want to throw up. In general, it makes me sick how this offense is so ungodly talented. And we're talking about them only scoring 17 against the Pittsburgh Steelers defense that you can throw on and you can run on. And I think I've said that just a nauseating amount of times last week and this week. But 29th run defense. They were giving up the 29th most yards per game on the ground, and they were around the 20s in pass defense. You could have scored on this team. You did not. You did not execute. But it's not just, okay, this game they didn't execute. It's a constant. And that is why I brought this up. Because we saw it. The offense went cold against the 49ers in the second half. We've seen it, but since Cooper Kupp has been back, this offense has been noticeably slower, not as fun, not as creative, and just quite honestly infuriating to watch. They have all the talent in the world, so this isn't me trashing anybody. I think one thing that can be said, though, is if you look, there are two things that would instantly improve this team. Two things that you can do tomorrow if you're Sean McVay. And the first thing is start to implement a receiving game out of the backfield. If you're talking about bringing Myles Gaskin up to speed and getting excited for him, realize you can use him in the passing game. You can use Darrell Henderson in the passing game. You can use a Royce Freeman in the passing game. I mean, this wasn't just this year. Darrell Henderson was, before he got cut by the Rams, Darrell Henderson was averaging more than any running back in terms of routes run per game. He wasn't getting the ball thrown to him. He's just running these goes. He's just running these curls, and he's not getting the ball thrown to him. It's a waste. Use the running back, the slip screen. Go back to what worked. If things start to struggle, if you start to hit a wall, you have to figure it out. The problem is, and this is a big problem, you have Mike McDaniel. You have Zach Taylor. You have Mike LaFleur. You have Kyle Shanahan. All these, when you start to add more to your coaching tree, Shanahan's adding more to his coaching tree. Guess what? People are figuring out your offense just for the fact that most of the league now is running it. Most of the league is running the concepts that the Rams are running. Most of it. You got to be one step ahead. You got to be creative. If that means figuring it out and just going back to what worked with Todd Gurley, do it. Use more slip screens. You don't think Darrell Henderson could work in that? You don't think Royce? You don't think Myles Gaskin? Why? They don't throw to the running back. And teams don't even care. They're like, oh, he's not going to throw to the running back. I'm not even going to cover the flat. That's why those guys are always open. And Stafford's always looking deep down the field and doesn't take the checkdowns. It's incredibly frustrating. So that's first thing. Start using the running backs. You see what the Saints did? They almost won that game. They lost, but they almost won that game on Thursday night because Alvin Kamara had like 13 receptions. I understand he's Alvin Kamara, but that kept those drives going because you could just dump it off. Derek Carr had nothing. Okay, dump it off. Alvin Kamara. You're going up against the Jaguars defense, just dump it off. The Rams need to accommodate for the entire offense right now. Going up against Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, Dorrance Armstrong Jr., I mean, you have to be able to mitigate that pass rush. You have to be able to slow them down. And if you can't run it, you have to be able to hit them with the passing attack. Make them tackle you in the flat. We know that this team can block. There's no reason not to use it. So that is what I will say there. And then the second thing here, we talked about the screen game, the run game, whatever. Use Tutu Atwell. For the love of God, give that guy 10 targets a game and just see what he can do. For real. Like, if you're going to throw deep down the field, throw to Tutu Atwell. Because that guy's practically unstoppable down the field. I still have not seen anyone legitimately break up a throw that was perfect to Atwell. Atwell is always open. Get him the ball. It's so frustrating because, again, you know how good they can be. But this video has already been pretty long. I hope I've made my point very clear. This team has a huge opportunity here. They can turn this thing around. They can get that tiebreaker against Dallas. They can go to Lambeau, no Aaron Rodgers. They can get that tiebreaker over the Green Bay Packers, head into the bye, somewhat get healthy with Stafford, since, again, I don't think he's healthy with that hip injury. And by the way, if he's not healthy with the hip injury, stop putting him in position where now he has to wait for these long developing plays. It's not hard, but anyway. Then you got Seattle again, who you can beat them. You can totally lock in that tiebreaker, beating them twice. You got the Cardinals, which should be an easier win than some of the other teams that we're talking about, hopefully. Then you got, Washington, and you got the Saints, not obviously in order, but you have these teams that are going to be in your way to get to the playoffs in the NFC, and you have a lot of opportunities to secure tiebreakers against teams that are fighting for a playoff spot with you. You don't have that against the Vikings, the Buccaneers, or the Falcons, but you do have that against those teams. And so the Rams, if they're going to lose any games, they're going to want to lose to the AFC. But it's all going to start with the offense. The defense is played as well as you can, considering the fact the offense has just really not been up to par. And we've seen that. So the key is putting points on the board. The key is making adjustments. I'm hoping this game is the one that just wakes up Sean McVay. It's going to be, Cooper Kupp's fourth game back. Let's see if the offense is clicking. Let's see if they figure it out. And if they don't, it's going to be harder for the defense. It could be a long season. And yeah. So do the Rams have... let's be honest here. Do the Rams, and drop in the comments section what you thought about this video first off, but do the Rams have an offensive identity? I would say they don't. And that's how I'd leave it. So hope you guys enjoyed this. If you did, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. One of my longer videos, but it was overdue. All right. I'll see you guys soon. Later, folks.
Start playing Pick'em or Weekly Fantasy for any sport today, Jake. Users will receive a 100% deposit match up to $100 if they use promo code OTE at sign up. Start playing Pick'em and Weekly Fantasy Football today with Underdog Fantasy.
Do you love talking about the Rams, the NFL, or just want to be a part of a community? Join my free Discord server today. We're over 800 members. We got 24/7 live chat, a level 3 boosted server, the ability to call into JE Live, playing online games with us on Kick streams, toggleable alerts for when I go live on YouTube or Kick so you don't miss a live stream, and exclusive giveaways. Click the link in the description, the comments section, or the link that comes up in the video to learn more and join today.